In a small village in France, one night a high school teacher named Eve receives a call from one of her students, Jennifer. Eve hears Jennifer scream, and then the call gets disconnected. Worried, Eve reports this to the police, claiming that from the sounds during the call, it seems like Jennifer is in the town's forest, and she believes Jennifer is in danger. The two police officers are Captain Decker, a new detective in town, and Virginie, a local police officer. They immediately call Jennifer's parents to the police station. Virginie asks the parents if they know Jennifer's whereabouts, and they think Jennifer is at Virginie's house since Jennifer and Virginie's adopted daughter, Maya, are close. Decker proceeds to take Jennifer's parents' statements, and both claim she hasn't shown any abnormal behavior. Virginie searches the town and school but cannot find Jennifer anywhere. Decker tries to get permission from the district attorney to access Jennifer's phone to track her. The other officers think he is taking the case too seriously and question his decisions. Virginie checks Jennifer's phone records and realizes there is one number, under the name Henry V, that Jennifer called 8 times before her disappearance. Eve shows up at the police station again and tells them she checked the forest but couldn't find Jennifer. She tells Decker that she believes something seriously bad has happened to Jennifer and thanks him for believing her. Decker and Virginie then go to the school. Maya and another friend, Ocean, seem suspicious about Jennifer's disappearance as they try to avoid the police. Decker and Virginie check Jennifer's locker and find a hateful message written on her mirror. The search team later reports that they found Jennifer's bike hidden in a swamp in the forest. One of the search team members mentions that he saw Thierry on the road leading to the forest last night. However, Virginie privately tells him that the man had a broken deal with Thierry last month, which is why his testimony cannot be taken 100% seriously. Meanwhile, at school, Eve learns that the person who left the death threat in Jennifer's locker was Maya and asks her what is going on between her and Jennifer. Maya claims that Jennifer made mean comments about her adoption and told her that no one wanted her. Ocean overhears them and confronts Maya, accusing her of lying and tagging Jennifer's locker. She then asks why Maya did it, but Maya refuses to answer. At the police station, Decker confronts Virginie about covering for Thierry and not mentioning the fact that he is an ex-convict. Virginie says that she has known Thierry since kindergarten and believes he would never harm Jennifer. Decker then goes alone to meet Thierry. It turns out that Thierry is Ocean's father. Decker mentions that someone claimed to have seen Thierry on the road leading to the forest the night before, but Thierry denies this and says he was at home with Ocean, watching TV. Decker asks for the name of the film, and while Thierry struggles to answer, Ocean provides the title. Despite this, Decker still believes they are lying. Given how awkward they act, Eve leaves the school and finds a strange drawing on her motorbike. She thinks it's a signal and compares it with a map of the forest, realizing that the drawing marks a spot in the woods. Eve goes there and finds a white wolf. The wolf then leads her to where she finds one of Jennifer's shoes. She informs the police and they organize a search party in the area. One police officer, Julian, mentions 2 missing person cases that occurred more than 10 years ago, a camper who disappeared in 2005 and a schoolgirl, Melanie, who went missing in 2006. Decker goes to the school to find out who left the drawing on Eve's motorbike, but unfortunately, there's no CCTV in the parking lot. Meanwhile, Virginie discovers a campfire but is unable to determine who made it. Decker then picks up his daughter, Lola, from school while a schoolboy watches them from a distance. The next day, Virginie is about to leave for work when a package is delivered to her. Inside are Jennifer's clothes. Horrified, Virginie brings the package to the police station and finally realizes the case is far more serious than she initially thought. She then goes to Jennifer's house to inform her mother, who breaks down in tears. Eve has a dream about Thierry driving a van into the woods and dragging a body out to bury. Julian reveals to Decker Eve's backstory. She was found in front of Dr. Abraham's house as a 6-year-old child. Severely injured and with no memory, Dr. Abraham then adopted her. To this day, no one knows where Eve came from or what happened to her. Maya and Ocean talk about Jennifer's disappearance. Although it seems they don't know where she is, Maya is definitely hiding something. The police now have full access to Jennifer's phone calls and texts. Julian tells Decker that Jennifer and Henry V seem to have had some sort of relationship. Decker reads the texts and notices one message that says, "Beware of Maya." Decker heads to the school and asks Eve to help him question Maya. While he instructs Julian not to inform Virginie about any of this, the scene shifts to Vincent, Virginie's husband. standing on a bridge and throwing one of his phones into the river. At the police station, Virginie and Julian review CCTV footage of the mailbox where Jennifer's clothes were sent from and realize that the person who sent the package was Jennifer herself. Decker brings Maya to the police station, and Virginie is furious when she sees this. She even accuses him of believing Eve because he has feelings for her. However, Decker reminds her to act professionally and continues interrogating Maya. Decker wants Maya to tell the truth about Henry V and threatens that if she doesn't, she will be detained by the police in court. However, Maya is smart and knows it's just a threat, refusing to reveal any information about Henry V. She then demands to return to school to take her exam. Vincent arrives to take her back, and Virginie asks him to talk to Maya more. However, Maya refuses to speak to Vincent, and he receives a text message that says, "I know." The police find sperm on the clothes Jennifer sent to the station and suspect she may have been assaulted and sent her clothes as a way to report the crime. Vincent calls the unknown number that texted him, but no one answers. He also can't find any information online. The person continues to text him, saying he won't be able to hide and that they will seek justice. Julian checks the speed camera and notices Thierry's van was near the area where Jennifer's shoe was found around the time she called Eve. This further strengthens Decker's suspicions, and he goes to Thierry's house again. At Thierry's house, Decker demands to see Ocean to question her, but she isn't home. Decker finds bloodstains in the kitchen and calls Julian to investigate. They discover that a large amount of blood had been wiped away with bleach, but it still shows up when they use luminol. Meanwhile, Vincent receives another anonymous message asking to meet him at the park. He goes there, and it turns out the person texting him was Maya. Maya confronts him about his affair with Jennifer and accuses him of being involved in her disappearance. Vincent apologizes for his affair with Jennifer but denies that he had anything to do with her disappearance. Thierry is brought to the station for a DNA sample. Decker asks him about the bloodstains in the kitchen, but Thierry keeps lying. Decker then reads Thierry's criminal record. He had set fire to Dr. Abraham's house, Eve's adoptive father, killing Abraham's wife and infant son. When he was in high school, Thierry snuck into Abraham's office to steal medication. The doctor caught him red-handed and called the police. As revenge, Thierry set fire to the house, killing Abraham's wife and child. Thierry hangs his head and says he didn't know there were women and children in the house at the time. Decker clearly doesn't believe Thierry and asks him what he did to Jennifer. Thierry starts losing his mind and screams that everyone always blames him because of his past. At this moment, Virginie arrives at the station and intervenes. To her, Thierry admits that the blood belongs to Ocean. He says that he got angry and slapped her when he thought she looked at him with disgust. Since Ocean often gets nosebleeds, she started bleeding heavily from her nose. Right at this moment, Decker gets a call from a colleague informing him that they found Jennifer's phone strap. Nearby, they also found her body buried under a cave. Virginie is deeply shocked upon seeing Jennifer's body, and she is assigned to inform Jennifer's parents. Decker then returns to the police station and continues interrogating Thierry. Thierry says that on the night Jennifer disappeared, he was somewhere else and was accidentally caught on a speed camera while driving home. He also claims that someone saw him and can testify for him, and that person happens to be Dr. Abraham. Dr. Abraham confirms that he saw Thierry on the road as he was returning home from visiting a patient. At this point, Thierry admits that he was out poaching that night, which is why he was out so late. Before leaving, Dr. Abraham tells Decker that Ocean had come to see him for an appointment and it seemed like she had stolen some prescription slips. However, he hasn't seen her use them at any pharmacy in the area. When Virginie returns home, she finds out that Maya has also run away. She goes back to the police station to talk to Thierry and asks him to let her know if Ocean comes back or if he hears anything from her. Now, both Ocean and Maya have disappeared with their phones turned off, just like Jennifer. That night, someone throws a brick through Thierry's window. On the brick is the word murderer. From the autopsy results, Decker believes that Jennifer was abused. After that, she sent her clothes to report the crime, but then the culprit lured her back into the woods and killed her, hiding her body. The forensic doctor mentions that silver pine needles were found on Jennifer's body, and the nearest silver pine forest is at least 15 kilometers away from where her body was found. This suggests that Jennifer was killed somewhere else and then brought to the location. The next day, a suspicious man is spotted near the cave site. Decker and his colleague Philippe set up an ambush and arrest the man, who attacks Philippe before being subdued. At the station, Julian recognizes the man as Manoah Willem. Manoah grew up isolated in the Fez forest with his mentally ill father. At age 17, he killed his father and was sent to a specialized prison for 7 years. Manoah, diagnosed with autism, doesn't like being touched and was likely abused by his father. Julian realizes that Manoah was released 3 weeks before the first girl disappeared a decade ago and suspects a connection. When Decker interrogates Manoah, he struggles to speak, only repeating the name Joe and drawing spirals. Virginie, frustrated, yells at him, demanding information about Maya, but Manoah responds by spitting in her face. The police collect his DNA for testing. The following day, the police organize a new search party for Maya and Ocean. Eve joins them and, once again, sees the white wolf that previously guided her. The wolf leads her to Manoah's dwelling, where they discover a doll and a woman's bra. The police continue searching Manoah's dwelling and find a raincoat that seems too small for him and a bow and arrow set for a right-handed person, while Manoah is left-handed. Maya's mother confirms that the underwear found is not hers, and Manoah's DNA does not match the semen found on Jennifer's clothes and body. Decker questions Manoah about the items they found at his home, but Manoah says nothing except for the word Joe. Later, a man calls the police, claiming he may have seen Maya. The man tells them that he saw Maya, along with another girl who was likely Ocean, went to a nearby internet cafe. Decker and Virginie head to the cafe, where the owner reveals that the 3 girls frequently visit to use the computers. Virginie is puzzled since all of them have PCs at home. The owner shows them the browsing history of the computer the girls usually used, and they discover that the girls had been chatting with someone but he used VPN, making it impossible to trace the IP address. They also realize that all 3 girls logged into the computers shortly after running away from home. Meanwhile, at his home, Dr. Abraham opens an old box containing cassette tapes labeled with Eve's name and dates from 1994. He plays one of the tapes, showing a young Eve sitting quietly in a corner before suddenly hissing and behaving strangely. Virginie returns to the station and confronts Manoah again, nearly hitting him in frustration, accusing him of being used by someone to lure young girls into the woods. However, Manoah remains silent. Dr. Abraham calls Eve and gives her the box of cassette tapes, which he had hidden for years to help her forget her painful past. The tapes were recorded during Eve's time at the mental institution after she was found. Today, after accidentally seeing the doll the police found at Manoah's place, Dr. Abraham realizes it was Eve's old doll. The police decide to collect DNA samples from all men in town to identify who the sperm found on Jennifer's clothes belongs to. Philippe visits Vincent to collect his sample, but Vincent tries to avoid it, lying to Stahl. Despite his efforts, he eventually has no choice but to give his DNA. Later, Vincent's younger son reveals that he had forgotten to return Maya's memory card, which he had kept for several days. Vincent brings it to the police, and the contents shock everyone. The memory card contains a video of Maya, Jennifer, and Ocean undressing and auctioning themselves. Virginie is devastated by what she sees. Meanwhile, Eve watches the old videos Dr. Abraham gave her and is shocked to see a drawing of her as the same spirals that Manoah has been obsessively drawing. Back at the police station, Manoah manages to trick Virginie into coming close to his cell. He attacks her and escapes. The police immediately launch a manhunt, fearing that Manoah will alert his accomplices and they will destroy all evidence. Despite their efforts, by nightfall, they still haven't found him. That night, Manoah sneaks into Eve's house and wakes her up in the morning. Eve is terrified. But Manoah doesn't seem to want to harm her. He repeatedly says Joe while pointing at the video of Eve as a child and the photograph of the 3 missing girls on her desk. Eve, trying to make sense of his actions, asks where Maya and Ocean are. Manoah points toward the forest. Eve drives Manoah to the forest, where they begin walking in. However, when Manoah hears the sound of another car approaching, he suddenly covers Eve's mouth and pushes her to the ground. Eve, panicked, fights back and manages to run away. She drives off, leaving Manoah behind. Meanwhile, Vincent drives Virginie to work and tries to sneak into the police station to steal his DNA sample before it can be tested. However, before he can retrieve it, 2 officers enter the room, forcing him to hide and eventually leave. Virginie, upon seeing Vincent lingering near the police station, starts to become suspicious of him, especially when she notices that one of the DNA sample containers has its seal broken. At this moment, Eve arrives at the station, informing the police about her encounter with Manoah and what happened in the forest. Virginie decides to investigate the location. Eve also tells Decker about the old video footage Dr. Abraham gave her. Decker, concerned for her safety, advises Eve to move in with Dr. Abraham since her home is no longer secure. When they return to Eve's house to collect her things, they make a horrifying discovery: the tapes have been burned, and Manoah's body is found hanging from the roof. Virginie arrives at the scene and gets agitated when she sees that Manoah is dead. The forensic doctor says Manoah killed himself and burned Eve's tapes, but Decker thinks otherwise. He believes someone murdered Manoah and staged it to look like a suicide. As Eve packs her things, she finds a small sculpture in her room, which seems to have been left by Manoah. Later, Decker gets the DNA results from Julian and goes to arrest Vincent. Vincent admits he had an affair with Jennifer but denies hurting her or having anything to do with Manoah's death. Virginie is shocked by this news. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lopez, Virginie's neighbor, goes to the police station to report that she saw Vincent leaving the house on the night Jennifer disappeared. Virginie confronts Vincent, disgusted at how he pretended to love her while secretly sleeping with their daughter's friend. Vincent claims that he broke up with Jennifer the morning before she disappeared, and that's likely why she sent her clothes with his DNA to the police to get revenge. He also says that on the night Jennifer went missing, he went out to search for his lost watch, which he misplaced after meeting with her. Meanwhile, Eve goes deeper into the forest and discovers a cave. Inside, she finds children's clothing and spiral carvings etched into the rocks. The district attorney arrests a man they tracked online who had hired Ocean as a prostitute. Decker and Virginie go to interrogate him, and Thierry follows them, planning to shoot the man. Virginie manages to stop him and tells him to calm down. The man admits to meeting Ocean, who used the name Zoe. He says they only engaged in prostitution and that he didn't harm her. He also mentions that he was able to call her just the day before. He adds that Ocean introduced him to her friend, and he invited both of them to a 48-hour party with some of his friends. Dr. Abraham joins Eve to explore the cave. She starts to believe that when she was a child, Manoah took care of her in the cave before eventually bringing her to Dr. Abraham's house. With all the hate her family is receiving after Vincent's secret was exposed, Virginie decides to send her young son, Tristan, to stay with her sister for a while. The next day, the police follow a lead to meet Ocean, but instead of finding Maya with her, they find another girl. Ocean explains that Maya had found out about Vincent's affair with Jennifer, and it made her furious. Maya left home, and Ocean convinced Maya to join her being a prostitute. However, Maya backed out at the last minute and then disappeared. That night, Eve visits Decker to share what she's found. Among her discoveries are the same type of fir needles that were found on Jennifer's body. There is also a straw doll with braids that look like Jennifer's hair when her body was discovered. Decker suspects that Manoah might have witnessed Jennifer's murder, moved her body, and performed some sort of burial ritual. At the police station, they track down the last person who chatted with Maya before she went missing, an older man from the area named Bertrand. However, when they go to his house, his wife says Bertrand has been missing for 2 days, and she has called the police several times to report it. While the police are trying to figure out how to track him down, Bertrand suddenly shows up at the station with blood all over his face. He had been hiding but got beaten up by people after his face is all over the news. He insists that he only chatted with the girls and didn't harm them. He says he had coffee with Maya and then drove her to the bus station. Virginie calls Julian to check the CCTV footage at the bus station and talk to the bus drivers. The police head there, and Virginie finds Maya's bag in the forest behind the station. Meanwhile, Eve goes into the woods again and sees the white wolf. She follows it and makes a chilling discovery: a bra and a human bone. The police arrive at a scene and make a grim discovery: the remains of 2 women. The bra found earlier is confirmed to belong to Jennifer. The forensic doctor identifies one set of remains as Melanie, the schoolgirl who disappeared 10 years ago. The second skeleton, however, appears to have been there for 20 to 30 years. The police now suspect that the killer who murdered Jennifer is the same person who killed these women years ago, and that he committed the crimes in the same location. They theorize that Manoah had witnessed these events and later moved Jennifer's body to a different burial spot. Decker visits Eve to collect her DNA, as they suspect that the older remains might belong to Eve's mother. Eve believes this could be the reason why Manoah left the small sculpture for her, as a clue to lead her to the bodies. Meanwhile, Virginie reviews the CCTV footage from the bus station and sees that Maya appears to have gotten into a car with someone she knows. During this time, Ocean, taking advantage of Thierry being out, packs her belongings and runs away again. Eve happens to spot her at the bus station. Ocean tells Eve she doesn't want to live a miserable life in the village anymore. Eve tries to convince her to reconsider and continue her education. Later that evening, Virginie returns home to find that Vincent has been temporarily released. He tries to explain himself. But Virginie, exhausted and overwhelmed, walks away and goes to take a bath instead. Decker informs Eve that the second skeleton has been confirmed as her mother. Heartbroken, Eve realizes this is the only time she has ever met her mother. The next day, someone vandalizes the high school and steals old photos from a display case. Meanwhile, the forensic doctor informs Decker that Manoah had been killed by a synthetic poison that can induce temporary paralysis in high doses. The poison is found in a muscle relaxant called Zerdil, which is available in pharmacies. Decker visits the local pharmacy, which is run by Mrs. Lopez, the same woman who previously reported seeing Vincent leave his house the night Jennifer disappeared. When Decker asks if she has sold any Zerdil recently, Mrs. Lopez becomes flustered and claims her computer is broken. Decker tells her to contact him once it's fixed, then leaves. However, instead of going far, Decker waits outside and follows Mrs. Lopez when she makes a phone call and heads off to meet someone. Mrs. Lopez meets up with a friend to confide in her. Decker approaches them, and Mrs. Lopez is forced to admit that 3 days ago, while doing inventory, she noticed that 3 boxes of Zerdil were missing, even though they had been locked up. She also reveals that the reason she was able to see Vincent leave his house the night Jennifer disappeared is because she was staying at her girlfriend's house, which is across from Vincent's. Mrs. Lopez had been keeping her relationship secret because she didn't want her husband, Mr. Lopez, to find out that she was in love with a woman. At school, Eve goes to the principal's office to ask Mr. Lopez for duplicates of the stolen photos. However, when he retrieves the box where the photos should be, they are missing as well. Growing suspicious, Eve meets with a student and asks him to send her a picture he took last week, which happens to show the display case in the background. Eve figures out that the student who wrote on her car about Jennifer is Max. But he won't admit it. She goes back into the forest to search for clues, but someone knocks her out and ties her up in an old shed. The attacker sets the shed on fire, trying to kill her. Thankfully, Terry drives by, sees the fire, and saves Eve just in time. When the police arrive, they find stolen items in Thierry's van, and he gets arrested for years of burglary. Eve and Dr. Abraham offer Ocean a place to stay while her father is in jail. Later, Eve receives the photos of the display case and discovers the principal, Mr. Lopez, in an Olympic team jacket, Jeux Olympiques, and realizes that he is J.O. At the police station, Virginie gets angry at the kids for not telling the truth about Maya. One kid admits they saw Jennifer in the forest the night she went missing and had a small argument with her, which is why they damaged her bike. Another kid says they saw a headlight coming into the forest before they left. Eve runs to the police station to inform them of her revelation. The detail about the headlight entering the woods, mentioned by the child, aligns with Eve's memory that one of Mr. Lopez's car headlights was broken the morning after. The police quickly surround his house and enter, but find no one. In the basement, they discover a room that seems to have been where Mr. Lopez held Maya captive. A laptop is placed in the room, and Virginie discovers a video message from Maya, pleading with her to follow Lopez's instructions, which would allow him to flee the country without any obstacles. Virginie and Julian notice in the video an airline ticket visible in a jacket behind Maya, prompting Virginie to race to Lille to intercept Lopez. However, Decker finds this detail unrealistic, as Lopez has successfully evaded the police for 30 years and wouldn't make such a careless mistake now. Decker reads one of the books Lopez has been writing and realizes that Lopez is likely attempting to escape to Belgium by driving through the Ardennes, following an old smuggling route. He calls Virginie to inform her. Meanwhile, Lopez is driving Maya through a forest. When she startles him, causing him to lose control and crash into a tree, Maya seizes the opportunity to escape, and Lopez chases after her with a rifle. Maya makes it to the main road and spots a passing truck. Luckily, she manages to jump onto the truck just before Lopez can catch up. Maya calls Virginie, and she is relieved to know her daughter is safe. Meanwhile, Decker and his colleague try to pinpoint Lopez's location in the woods. Julian finds him near a cliff, and Decker arrives just in time to stop Lopez from jumping. Virginie is finally able to bring Maya back home. The police interrogate Lopez, and he claims that he is not the only one to blame. He indicates that if Vincent hadn't been having an affair with Jennifer, she wouldn't have stayed out late that night, and he wouldn't have had the chance to murder her. The next morning, Virginie tells Vincent to pack his things and leave the house before 8 p.m. because she can no longer live with him. Thierry leaves the house to head to jail. On the way, he passes by Dr. Abraham's house and apologizes for the death of his wife and son, explaining that he didn't know they were inside when he burned the house down. Eve goes to the police station to question Lopez about her mother. Her mother was his first victim. Eve was driving with her when they got a flat tire. After stopping and getting out of the car, Lopez attacked and killed her mother. Lopez then drove a sleepy Eve to a remote part of the forest and abandoned her there. Eve would have died if it hadn't been for Manoah, who rescued her. Lopez expressed how intrigued he was when Eve later appeared at the school and became one of the teachers. Eve is furious at Lopez's audacity. She asks him for her mother's name, but Lopez smirks and refuses to answer. As Eve leaves the room, Lopez says arrivederci to her, which she takes as a hint that her mother might have been Italian. Suddenly, Lopez grabs a police officer's gun and shoots himself in the head, committing suicide. The next day, Decker meets Eve at the school, with the clue that Eve's mother might have been Italian. Decker had searched through missing persons cases and finally found information about her mother, a woman named Paula. Paula had Eve with her boyfriend, Luca, but they later broke up and began fighting over custody of Eve. Paula received a job offer in France and left Italy with Eve. Luca reported it as a child abduction, but the case was never resolved. With the timeline Decker provides, Eve realizes that she was in the forest for 2 years until Dr. Abraham found her. Decker hands Eve a photo of her and her mother from over 20 years ago, where Eve is wearing a shirt with a spiral, just like Manoah's drawings. Decker then gives Eve the information about her father, who now lives in Belgium with his wife and son. Eve asks for his address and sets off to find him. Before leaving, she visits Manoah's grave, where she once again sees the white wolf.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.